You who have entered this video now, welcome to the first part of this story, which we call, The Journey. It is a journey through which you will see many secrets through the story of a person searching for the truth. Are you ready to embark on this journey with us? Are you ready to learn some secrets? No doubt you always wonder, why do some people have talents, while others are rich or very intelligent, like Einstein and Edison, who invented the light bulb? No doubt you wonder what the difference is between them and poor people, or people who do nothing with their lives. And you keep wondering, how can I do the same as them, or even better? You will find the answers to all these questions with us on this journey. This story that you will hear from me, which is my story, did not come out of nowhere, but came from a very successful person who has accomplished many things in his life, and through the stories of other successful people as well. If you apply these secrets that you will hear, you will become one of them. In the last 3 years, things have happened to me that I never imagined would happen in my life. My entire worldly life, as we see it, is this: we are poor people, living in a basement apartment with no windows. I live here with my parents and my 2 younger brothers. I am 27 years old, I work in a cafe, and sometimes I do other freelance work. I was working as hard as I could to support myself and my parents. Then came the shocking event, the event that would turn everything upside down. One day, while I was standing at work as usual, my phone rang. I wished I hadn't answered it. I answered and heard a man's voice, so I asked, "Who is this?" He said, "Is this the police?" I was surprised by this, because the police usually come to you, they don't talk to you on the phone, so I said. He broke my silence and said, "Come to this address, we want you to see something." At that moment, I was confused. First, why was the police calling me? And why should I go to them? Usually, they are the ones who come to me. I felt a headache coming on. I still had an hour left on my shift before the other waiter would take over. At that moment, I didn't realize what might have happened. My mind started playing all kinds of movies and bad scenarios, because that's what it does, it prepares you and makes you take precautions. I left the cafe and rushed out, hailed a red taxi, and headed straight for the address. I got in the car and kept asking myself why the police had called, but my brain couldn't answer. When we arrived at a place, I stayed in the car and didn't get out, and then they came to me. I found a sign hanging that said, "Mortuary." Terror began to creep into me, and I began to realize that something was not right. We went inside, and the whole place was full of refrigerators. One of the police officers opened one of them and pulled out a dead body covered with a sheet. At that moment, I felt like the world had stopped. I started screaming as I hugged my father and kissed him, saying, "What happened to you?" I screamed until I almost fainted. The policeman held me so I wouldn't fall, until I lost consciousness and could no longer stand on my feet. I stood up and started crying, and I saw another compartment being opened. He pulled something out and took out another covered corpse. At that point, I could no longer think. It was my mother who had died. Suddenly, he started opening 2 other refrigerators. My brothers were in them. They were both dead. My father, my mother, my brothers. Everything was dead. Everything, right before my eyes. At that moment, my body began to shake, I was screaming hysterically, scratching myself and banging my head against the wall. The police came and restrained me and calmed me down. At that moment, a nurse came and gave me an injection to calm me down. I woke up and opened my eyes in the hospital. I said to the same nurse who gave me the injection, I looked at him, and at that moment I remembered my father, mother, and brothers who had died. I started screaming and crying like a little child. The commissioner who had been with me the day before came in. He began to explain to me how they had died. He said, they went on that trip, and a truck overturned on the car in front of them and hit them. They found them covered in blood and their faces disfigured. Time stood still. I said to him, "What do we do now?" He said, "We'll bury them in half an hour." I got up at that hour. I left. He said to me, "Where are you going?" I said to him, "I'm going on my way." He said to me, "No, you need psychological help." I said to him, "I don't need it." At that moment, I signed some papers and gave them to him, the death certificate and what they would do to bury them. I couldn't go to the funeral, I just couldn't. Especially since our family only consists of my father, mother, brothers, and me. I don't have any other family members, no uncles or aunts. I don't know them, and I've never met them. That was fate, and that shock, I couldn't get over it and get rid of the sadness I felt inside. At that moment, I gathered all their belongings, my father's, my mother's, and my brother's. I put them in a large bag, went out to that empty place in front of us, and set them on fire. I couldn't keep seeing anything that belonged to them, or I would get even sicker. That day, I died. I couldn't even cry, even though I wanted to do something. The truth shocks you in many ways. The question is, imagine if this happened to you too. After that, about 4 or 5 days passed, and I just locked myself in the house, not going out or communicating with anyone. I stopped going to work. After 10 days of being locked in the house, I tried to pull myself together again. I went back to work and said to myself, I have to work, I need money. I couldn't find anything to give to the owner of the house where I live. When I entered the cafe, I found a new waiter working in my place. I asked the owner, and he said, "You've been away for a long time. You stopped coming, so we brought in a new guy." I went back to explain the problem to him, and he said, "We brought in a new guy, we can't fire him." I didn't know what to say to myself. There were two types of people when you talk to them, either they would pity you, or they would feel happy about what you were going through. I went home with no friends left. My relationships with other people completely fell apart. Problems and pressures began to increase day by day. I had no money left, I was living on the food I had at home, and I was borrowing from the shopkeeper in the neighborhood. No one cared about this news. Some people cried, some heard and moved on, and most importantly, after all that time, everything was forgotten. It is natural for people to live a beautiful life. If you think you are very important, know that if you disappear from existence, only those closest to you will cry for you, that's all. As for the rest, 2 days or 1 night after your funeral, they will start talking and forget you as if you never existed. The problems were increasing day by day. At that moment, I had to turn to someone who had the ability to solve all these problems for me. Someone who had the ability to enrich me, someone who had the ability to get me out of all this confusion. There is one. He is the one I turn to. You decide when you will go to him. You decide how long you will sit with him. It is not like a manager or someone else telling you when to come to him and what to say. No. I knew I would go to God. I performed ablution, and it was the first time I would pray. I prayed. In the last prostration, I began to hear an inner voice saying to me, "Stay faithful." What I didn't know was that the greatest gift I would receive would come from the greatest hardship of my life. I grabbed my phone and started searching YouTube to distract myself, and I found a story about religion that said the book you need to read is the Holy Book. I obtained a copy and started reading it, and the first verse that caught my eye was, "And it was incumbent upon us to help the believers." Al-Rum, 47. I had never been victorious in my life. On the contrary, I always failed at everything I tried to do, and misfortunes always followed me from all sides. I turned 2 pages of the book and began to read, and another verse caught my eye, which was, "Whatever good befalls you is from Allah, and whatever evil befalls you is from yourself," An-Nisa, 79. At that moment, I picked up my phone and started searching. I searched for the meaning of the first verse I had seen and read, which is, "And it was incumbent upon us to help the believers." I started researching, and at the same time I wondered, why did God say, "to the believers," and not, "to the Muslims"? Until I came across a video that explained this in detail. What I understood was that whoever believes that God will help him, he will be victorious. Even if you do all the pillars of Islam, pray, give charity, do everything, if you do not believe in your heart that God will help you, believe me, nothing will change in your life. In that video, I discovered that this man gave an example and said to you, imagine if an atheist and a Muslim were carrying the same weapon, or that the Muslim was carrying an old weapon, and the atheist was carrying a knife or a sword. Of course, if I asked you, who would win? The obvious answer you would give is the Muslim. But in fact, no, the one who will win and be victorious is the one who believes that he will win. This changed many of my beliefs, which were completely wrong and almost contrary to the approach of Allah. Sometimes I would sit alone and say, Allah does not respond to my prayers or anything else. Now I know that the problem comes from my inner faith. I continued searching through the videos and found the interpretation of the second verse, "Whatever good befalls you is from Allah, and whatever evil befalls you is from yourself." This means that God always gives you only good things and sends you only good things. It means that if any misfortune happens to you in your life, know that it is from you and what you have done with your own hands. These two things together caused an earthquake in my life. That whole night, I sat and looked at the stars through the door of the house, and I began to try to believe that God would find a way out of my situation for me, and that I too would be a person who enjoyed and was comfortable with his life. That question began to fade away: why can you find an atheist and an unbeliever living well and comfortably, while a Muslim lives in hardship and poverty? In the entire Holy Quran, you will never find Allah encouraging you to be poor. On the contrary, He tells us in His book, Satan promises you poverty, but Allah promises you forgiveness from Him and bounty, Al-Baqarah, 268. And Allah cannot promise you something that Satan promises you. This means that you brought poverty upon yourself. At first, it was very difficult for me to hear and accept all this information, but then I realized that it was true. Because I applied it to many things in my life. If you think about it logically and rationally, don't you notice that poor people are not poor because they don't have money, but because they are poor in mind? Don't you notice that those people who are poor in mind and who only complain and grumble, and those people who are rich in mind before they are rich in their pockets, their lives always become richer, and their joy and happiness increase? But in our culture, the opposite is true. They tell us and delude us into thinking that rich people are not happy. Why wouldn't he be happy when it is God who gave him that wealth? Ask yourself, where did all that wealth come from? Everything he does in his life, God gave him. Isn't God capable of giving him joy? Believe me, it exists and he has it. I was sitting in front of the house looking at the stars when a young girl, maybe 13 years old, walked by. She was carrying a bag, and a book fell out in front of me. I stopped moving. I liked the cover. I began to see the pictures on it from the outside. I began to see. I wanted to pick it up and give it back to the girl and say, "Your book," until I saw her get into the car, and the car drove away. I kept looking. Glory be to God. When you are looking for something, it comes to you. You just have to move towards it. Anyway, I was sitting at home, and I wouldn't have come across this thing. The important thing is that we'll talk about this point later. I went into the house and felt that I had to take that thing with me. I really liked the cover. It seemed mysterious, especially since I like things that have depth and mystery. That book was almost 100 years old. I began to pay attention to the source of the ideas in it. And the only idea it revolved around. Its name was, The Great Secret. Did all the famous people know this secret? Did they all know this secret and not share it with anyone else? Why? This is the question that puzzled many people. They all knew this secret. The great figures of history were aware of it: Plato, Shakespeare, Newton, Hugo, Beethoven, Edison, Tesla, Einstein, Picasso. They were all very successful in their fields. And I began to wonder, why don't ordinary people know this secret? So I decided to share this story with you, so that you too can know it. I'm sure you may have heard of it before, but you've never applied it in the right way. The important thing is that after I read that book, many things became clear to me. Many ideas came to me. And I began to apply it to certain events in my life. And it was true. I know you're wondering, what is this secret? I'll tell you. This secret turned my whole life upside down, and my story will follow. Because this was just the introduction. You'll understand exactly what happened to me. The secret is, the law of attraction. The thing you think about a lot comes true in your life. But it's not as easy as I understood it on the first day of that book. I started looking into videos. Where did it come from? Who was the first to know this law? Why did they know it and not share it with other people? After this video, we will embark on this journey full of secrets and truths.